I will call the Committee of the Whole work session, Supporting Community Through Public Service, at 10:41 this morning. On our agenda, we have the meeting minutes from May 19th. Our agenda today is the Cook County SWCD update for information only. Then we do have the Tofte Transfer Station Operation Transition, information there too. And then we also have the minutes of the standing committees from past meetings, information of Airport Advisory Commission and the Highway Advisory Committee. Our next meeting will be July 21st. And I'll open it up with the Cook County SWDC.
Thank you for having me. Elaine Hansel, for those who are online, and I am the district manager and the watershed planner for the Conservation District, Stormwater Conservation District. So I just wanted to update you on kind of what we are working on for 2026, what our workload looks like. We will be requesting funding again from the county, and we appreciate all that the county has provided for us over the years. But I wanted to just refresh your mind as to what work we do and how we are part of this county and the work impacts everybody. And then also just to let you know some of our forecasted budget changes and implications for the future moving forward for 2027 and 2028. So I did a PowerPoint because it's easier to talk than me just blabbing for a while and gives you some visuals. So, and then Jan, I can click. Yes, perfect. So update on our team, just as some of this is a reminder, some of this you'll know, some of this you've heard before. We have 5 of us in our office. There's 5 year-round staff. There's myself, the district manager and watershed planner. We have Ann Paulson. She's our financial administrator. You may not see her much because due to our office size, she is mostly remote. She shares a desk with Amanda Weberg, who is the aquatic invasive species supervisor. And then we have conservation technician Stephen Janessi, and then we have conservation technician 2, Max Tostenson, in our office to help kind of keep staff motivated, to keep training. We actually have a kind of hierarchy system, so the more training you get and the more certifications you get bumped to that level 2, which also increases your pay. So that's why Max is a conservation tech 2. Because he has done extensive training. So when we do projects with landowners, say for plantings for shorelines, he is able now to write, and with the district now takes on all that liability, but he writes the plan, and here's how many seeds, and here's the plants you should have. Previously, we always had to go and get state approval, but now he has that approval. So just to explain some of that. And then we have 4 seasonal staff. So this year we have 4 boat inspectors. We have Wiley, Shay, Nina, and Leroy. Leroy and Wiley are, I don't know how many years, 8, 9, 10 years they've been doing this. And then Shay and Nina are both new. And then this year we have 3 youth volunteers through the Cook County Youth Exchange. They'll be helping with beach monitoring and other projects. I left their name off just because they're minors. So, and then we have our 5-member board of elected supervisors, so Stan Tall, Greg Westergaard, Amber Humphrey, Cindy Oberg-Hauser, and Gail Gieske. And then for those who weren't sure, our board represents the land and the water and not the people. So that gets confusing, and so I often am telling people that that's their jurisdiction is the land and the resources. So I thought I would just kind of highlight our work and try to put it into categories for helping to remember and just to help to understand. So for 2026, we have education outreach, we have water monitoring going on, landowner assistance, sediment reduction, and then this other category which encompasses way more than I can include in it. But for education outreach this year, we have 5 events planned with partners. We're working with Chick Walk, Cook County Extension, and Minnesota Lakes and Rivers. We do Take a Kid Fishing. We do monthly WTIP interviews. We have invasive species event that we're working with Cook County invasive species folks from the Highway Department on this Saturday, actually. We have school visits that we do year round. And when I say us, I'm going to also, Amanda, as you know, is AIS, but some of this encompasses her and some of it doesn't. So just kind of keep that in mind. But most of this is just our office, not AIS, but with a little sprinkle of it. Visits with camps, and then we attend lake association meetings and homeowner association meetings, and then we have a lot of opportunities as they develop. We try to get out there. For water monitoring, our money for water monitoring is really difficult to obtain, to get. A lot of folks don't really want to support that. So, and it depends on what's going on at the state level. So we just are at the end of finishing a 3-year grant for doing a lot of extensive monitoring for the Minnesota Pollution Control Association agency. And so we have that funding, which is winding down, so next year will look completely different. But for this year, we have E. coli monitoring, which we do through the Department of Health, and that's actually 10 beaches, not 11. That changed. We have the Cross River, which is at the very end of the Gunflint Trail. That is exceptional water, so we're keeping an eye on it to keep it exceptional, hopefully. It's a very good water. We support the lake associations and individuals monitoring inland lakes. If you're here on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, you'll often see people coming in and out with coolers. That's us supporting them. We're helping them to become more independent. There's around 11 or 12 lake associations or individuals throughout the county that we're helping to coordinate, that are doing their own monitoring, and we're providing equipment if we can. This year, something new that we're doing through Minnesota Sea Grant and the Natural Resource Research Institute, if you haven't heard, Devil's Track Lake has had a couple consecutive years of cyanobacteria blooms. That's a big issue. That's blue-green algae, if you want the common name. But it's not algae, it's cyanobacteria, it's just the common name. And so they are working on a program throughout the state to do cyanobacteria monitoring at the local level. Because when somebody comes in and they're like, hey, Elena, what is this? And we do the quick jar test, and it's cyanobacteria, we then have to somehow figure out how to get it to Duluth, to the lab, to get analyzed. Is it active? Is it not active? And that can take days, and then that's just too late. Or if it even is cyanobacteria. And we do get phone calls of people getting their dogs have been sick from Devil's Track Lake. So we are fortunate in that they have a program this year, and so we are going to work with Devil's Track Lake, Caribou, and I'm not sure what the other lakes are still, maybe 1, 2, or 3, but right now it's at 3 lakes, to have just test kits. So if you were to say, hey, I am concerned, I'd say do the jar test, and then depending on what that jar test is, which it depends on where the cyanobacteria is in the water column to determine. Then we give you a test kit, and then we also take a water sample, and that test kit then will tell you if it's cyanobacteria or not. And the sample also, they have their program where somebody will come up and pick the sample up and take it down there and look at it. So those are just pictures of cyanobacteria on the right, in case you've never seen it.
You guys don't have a microscope?
We don't have a microscope to that magnification or the expertise. So it takes like days and days to run it. And then they tell you all the different types it is. And so we're excited to kind of get this up and going to better understand what's going on and then start to help make a plan, working with land services and public health to see, what do we need to do for future messaging, how much of a concern, and to help landowners understand that they are really impacting the water resources. I've had folks that have been here, second, third generation concerned, and I'm able to say it's not just, it's always blamed on the new people coming in, but a lot of this is historical nutrients and sediment loading that is taking place in our waters with the climate change and the warming waters is causing these blooms to happen. So it's not just the last 2 to 3 to 5, 10, 20 years. It's historic logging. It's not using septic systems a long time ago. It's a combination of things. So we're looking at that. And then we also do precipitation monitoring out of our office. So we have a number of people that we work with for that.
Can you talk more about that?
The precipitation monitoring. So we have people all over the county that monitor every single day. They record it, and then that goes to the state climatologist. It helps also, we've noticed, microclimates like Wolf Ridge. I mean, they're in Lake County, but they're a perfect example of having their own microclimate. And Hovland often gets more different precipitation than, the West End does. So just looking at the precipitation, you can see the changes day by day.
And that's manual monitoring?
All manual monitoring, yep. Volunteers get trained in, and then they record it, and they get really excited. It's pretty cool. We provide landowner assistance, so we have had a number of site visits, emails, phone calls, you name it. We're talking to folks, sometimes on the street, at the grocery store, but often it's always about erosion, forestry, stormwater, shoreline repairing buffers. This is a picture of a project we're doing for education outreach this year, where folks will go out and look at shoreline activity that we did last year with landowners and with the community. We had planted 500 plugs. And we're going to go check that site out to see what it looks like. It's very interesting. It's now covered in lupin and rocks that are this big that came up from the ice heave. So it's a great opportunity to discuss, well, now what do we do, you know, and because that's reality, that's nature. And then we're going to go plant this site, which has been covered in plastic with plugs, and this area is on Pike Lake.
What are the plugs?
A ton of different native plants.
Okay.
I don't know what they are. I'd have to ask staff that.
yeah.
So, yep. And then we've also been working with landowners already. We've got over 20 landowners that folks have been out doing site visits to. We are getting them about 1 or 2 a week now. We've got an online portal, and that's increased folks' workload to be able to help landowners. So we are implementing cost share projects. We're fortunate right now where we have 6 projects and we have funding to help landowners. We still have a large waiting list, but we still are able to help landowners do forestry projects where we pay 75% of the project and they pay 20%. Some of it's writing forward stewardship plans, shoreline practices, just a variety of different opportunities to mitigate land use impacts to water quality and soil. And then just connecting with landowners on previous projects. So we also are, anybody who does a project with us is under a 10-year contract. So that requires a 1, 3, 5, and 9-year site inspection from staff. So that includes me going out, all of us, all hands on deck to go out and talk to landowners and help them understand how their project's working.
That's a volunteer?
Volunteer? No, well, what do you mean volunteer?
That the landowner requests?
It's a 10-year contract.
10-year contract.
But the
So,
volunteering
Correct.
at the beginning.
yes, at the beginning, it's all, our work is not enforcement, it's all volunteer.
Right, but the landowner comes, says, we'd like help with this, and so you say, well, we will, but you have a 10-year contract, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna monitor it on these years to
Yep.
make sure that the agreement is
Yep.
being met,
Yeah.
which is a great thing,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, definitely. Yep. We always provide folks either with a verbal recommendations,
Yeah.
or if they'd like, we provide them, sometimes it requires an engineer to come up and say, we have a recommendation through that, or they have a letter, and then they can come to us and say, yes, I definitely want to move forward.
Yeah.
And then, yep. So. This is a category I didn't know how, because most of what we do is sediment reduction, but I didn't know how to grasp this one in a bucket. But this is the bucket it is going into. So we have to also line up projects for the future. It takes years, sometimes 3 to 4 to 5 years, sometimes 2 years to get projects from start to finish and working with a landowner. So right now, I don't have names for these landowners because we're not under contract with them, but we are doing project scoping with a very large project and landowner, and the state's involved with it. It's an exciting project, and we're looking at removing, and it's 3 or 4 landowners in this watershed, looking at removing aquatic organism barrier, so an old dam that nobody can find plans for, but you can see it on aerial photos kind of go in. So we're talking a very historical natural channel work, stormwater mitigation, all at this one location, and it's a trout stream going through here in tributaries. But that project takes years and then years of trying to find the funding. So we're getting that in development and in the hopper so we can apply for funding. We're going to be working some with the Poplar River, possibly exploring putting that bug out to establish the Poplar River Management Board as more and more landowners on that river continually are reaching out to us for assistance, and it's a very dynamic river. We are assisting with the Highway Department and continuing keeping track of our stream restoration project in the Little Devil's Track River. And then various stormwater projects, maybe with the city or other landowners. We've got boat landing assessment, and we've got 2 boat landing projects, which we are just, they're sitting on the shelf waiting for funding. So as soon as we can find funding for those, we've got projects going in. One is with the county, so we'll update you with that. It's Clearwater Boat Landing, and then the other one is with the Forest Service, which we'll keep that one until we get farther along with that process. And then we did work with the Village Ditch and do some live staking, so that was completed. So we've been pretty busy, still pretty busy. A lot of work for 5 people. So. And then other, this does not encompass everything that's other, just some big highlights. The tree and shrub sale, which we used to do with partners, but due to a lot of changes, we are now fully taking on our own as the SWCD. So that's a change. We started a tree tube sale. So folks, when they're planting more deciduous trees, we've got a lot more oaks and maples coming up so that it helps with deer browse. Because in the past, we've just helped, sell cages, which is great for coniferous trees, but those deciduous trees are also very edible. Staff trainings, we have grant writing and grant management. We have a lot of meeting with partners. We are the fiscal agent for over $1 million with the One Watershed, One Plan. So that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of extra work. We provide technical expertise, which I'll touch in a minute, to other county departments. We're active members, which again I'll touch on, of several different committees and organizations, and then we have a long list of other duties and responsibilities.
As assigned.
As assigned, yeah. Or
Is the One Watershed, which counties are involved in that?
Yep, so for Lake Superior North, we just have Cook County and Lake County, and then we also are part of the Rainy River Headwaters Vermilion River, and that's St. Louis, Cook and Lake, and then North St. Louis SWCD, Lake SWCD, and Cook SWCD. And North St. Louis SWCD is the fiscal agent for that because they have the bulk of the area.
Okay.
All right, just going to touch again on aquatic invasive species. We're just going to highlight their budget quickly, not to pop this random one in, but just because this is part of our office. Amanda, we call her the silo, but she's not the silo because her work impacts our work because water quality is impacted through aquatic invasive species. It used to be kind of on its own, and then it landed in our office the day that COVID hit, and we all got sent home in March in 2022, or 2020, sorry. So Amanda's been part of our staff and our team, and all of those who work under her, because she is a supervisor, are part of our team, but her funding is separate. It is housed with the county, and it is separate funding, but we also, part of the agreement we came with in adding more work to the district manager's position is that we need to have a little bit of supplemental money because I am actively engaged with all of that program and all of that staff. So we do take some of our funding through the AIS program to our staff and for Ann's position because she's also managing the finances for this. So previously, up until 2026, there's been around $200,000. This budget is getting cut in half as of 2027, down to $100,000 a year. Amanda has done a phenomenal job. She's been the person with the program since 2014 and managing the budget. She has a large general fund budget that will carry her for a couple of years. It is going to require that we, like next year, we'll go back down to 3 staff for inspectors, for boat inspectors. We did 4 this year because we know we have somebody leaving next year and we're hoping that they'll stay on then so everybody's trained in and we can keep that continuity. But it was a long discussion because it impacts her budget for the year. The SWCD, we house that position, we house the energy and all the greatness that it is. The program advocates to prevent aquatic invasive species in the water. Sometimes people think it's terrestrial, it's aquatic. The costs to be proactive, just as a reminder, are a lot cheaper than having to be reactive. So she just does an amazing job, and it's a very valuable program. What happens if you get aquatic invasive species in your property? Again, it reduces your property value. That has been seen over and over and over across the country. I sit down on webinars, and I'm from Indiana. I always like hearing the Indiana stuff. They talk about it all the time. The property values are dropping because people can't use the waters. You have a decline in recreation suitability. Most of our people up here get water from the lakes to drink from, to use. That impacts their water, and it impacts the aquatic ecosystems. Right now, it employs 4 to 5 people. As that funding gets less, it's less employment also, if you want to look at it from that end for the people in our community. And they're seasonal people. The seasonal people are great. They're retired, some of them. They just want a second job to keep busy, to have a little extra income, and it's a great opportunity for them. So we appreciate their work. All right, so what other work do we provide? We've got aquatic invasive species checked off. We are obligated, the SWCD, to provide technical expertise to the county for the Wetland Conservation Act and the buffer law. So that includes, we have a staff member dedicated to doing just wetlands, so they sit on the technical evaluation panel. So if folks reach out to land services, then the state comes down and everybody comes down and they walk around and they look at, is this a wetland? What are the impacts? What needs to be done? We're responsible, our office is for writing wetland restoration orders. That doesn't happen too often, thank goodness, but I know we have a big one coming up. That's additional workload on my staff, who are already stretched pretty thin, but it's a state obligation and we are fine with doing it and happy to do that. We also are required by the state to, again, we're not enforcement, but to help with buffer law compliance. So I have one staff dedicated to this. So they're looking at maps, making sure people have buffers. They're not dirt all the way up to different riparian areas, so lakes and streams. And then also, it's a goofy in my opinion, if there is an issue, it goes to land services and then comes back to us to help enforce it, but we're required to help enforce the ordinance because that's the way the law is written, so that's the way we do it. So. Beyond that, each county has a water planner. Cook County's always had one. That position 25 plus years ago used to be with the county. Then it got moved to the conservation district. Maybe it was 20 years ago. I am currently the county water planner. We just call it a watershed planner because we have changed, the program's changed to the whole watershed district instead of just tiny little water. What does that mean? It means that I'm representing both the county and the SWCD, which I try to do with helping, for example, the highway department needed more funding for the Rainy River headwaters for the Gunflint Trail. Came back, I knew we had extra money going on in the Rainy River headwaters plan for implementing it. Everybody, all the partners got together, said yes, shook up about $200,000. Here you go, Cook County Highway Department. Use this for match, use this for projects. So I try to represent both organizations as best as I can. And then we have Lake Superior North. And these adopted funds, because you have a county water planner, also means that the county gets natural resource block grant funding. And that helps a little bit with septic systems, helps with shorelines and wetlands. So, questions on any of that?
What's the sort of organizational chart of governance or components when it comes to the water? So we've got county water planner, we have Bowser, we've got, so what are the component elements that advise relative to?
Advise for what exactly?
Well, like if you look at Lake Superior and Poplar River, that board.
Yeah, so it's not that easy because in Minnesota, the waters are public waters, right? So that means the state is the ones, I don't know,
they have jurisdiction
over it all. And so each agency, this is my understanding, for Lake Superior, that's a whole another ball of worm, wax, because you've got federal. And then, so it just kind of depends on what the water body is. So for example, like the Poplar River Management Board, the waters they're governed by the state, but the landowners are the ones that are responsible for keeping it clean. And because of that, there's so many different landowners. You've got the Forest Service, you've got all the private entities. Those folks came together over 25 years ago to form this board, for better lack of word, that's what they call themselves, their board, this committee, to say let's work together as a whole watershed in this area that's developed to figure out, instead of putting Band-Aids, what do we need to do to keep the system going and keep it healthy and keep these waters clean. So Bowser oversees the soil and water conservation districts, and then like through the One Watershed, One Plan, my understanding is, and my experience has been that DNR and PCA, everybody sits at the table. When we go through that planning process, which you've been part of, we're all still at the table. And right now, the tribes, I am the liaison right now with MPCA and Bowser and Grand Portage. As we navigate the next One Watershed, One Plan, we are going to be changing things, and we're going to be asking for an extension because the plan expires in 2027, but we just updated it. And what we're going to be doing is taking water quality standards from the tribe and the state, and we're looking at how they mirror and they overlap, and how can we get more on the same page, and then how does that impact land use? And so we meet 2 or 3 times a year, and we're talking about all of this, and then we're going to go to the state at the local level and say we want an extension to be able to incorporate this into our next water plan. Before that didn't happen, it was just like, come on, Grand Portage, you guys have to come along and be part of this. So in answer to your question, who governs the water? It's the public waters. It's the land around it that it just depends on the landowner.
Yeah. And the reason that when you look at things, we can say we're rolling out this website now, Thrive,
Okay.
which says when it comes to public health, wellness, these are all the component parts that you can avail yourself to. So when we're talking about land use and we're talking about watersheds, and then looking at that structure as to how we govern that, and obviously jurisdiction, whether it's federal or it's state or it's county, but understanding the interconnections, so then you know who defers to who or where this comes from, that would be helpful.
Yeah. I'd have to look at it more to be able to
Yeah.
provide more of an
Thank you.
answer. And then what other work do we provide to the county beyond that this is not regulated? As we do a lot with the highway department. It's become more intertwined, which has been really great. We do a lot with culverts, talking about culverts, the size of culverts, what kind of culverts, bridges. Stream restoration, we've done a lot through Little Devil's Track just to understand the impacts of when you pull a culvert out and you put a bridge or whatever, you change the hydrology of that area, you know, when you've upsized it. What does that look like? What do you do for fish habitat? You can't throw gravel in, as has been previously done, and they've seen the impacts to that. So a lot of stream restoration work, grant applications. We were able to help Little Devil's Track, that bridge. Robbie and I were down there. Whenever he needs a letter of recommendation for this work, we're able to help and support that work. And then a lot of vegetation and invasive species work through Tia and Abigail, because that's really important for forest biodiversity, which is part of the reason we have clean water up here, because we have such healthy forests. And then assistance to land services. That has also really grown over the last couple years. We're providing technical expertise on buffers, vegetation, shorelines. Max writes 90% of the technical letters, and for variances and for permits, which has been beneficial. And I'm going to say in denying some of this, because it's able to help educate landowners that, like, yeah, you put a structure right there, but it's not healthy for the water. And if you want your property value, if you just look at it that way, there's so much science that says all that nutrients right in front of your lake property will be more vegetated and not as clean in our nutrient low waters compared to somebody who doesn't have that. So just being able to promote a lot of good best management practices on the lands, and helping just to change people's mindset that hopefully the water can stay clean for a lot of generations. We do a lot of assistance to landowners prior to variances. So often people will come in and land services will say, yeah, we'll grant your variance, but you need to go across the hall before it gets to be an issue and do a planting plan with us. And we will do cost share with individuals prior to them having these variances or these restraints or getting in trouble. And that has been really beneficial. And we'll also sometimes do education and outreach on the property, which has also been great, because people ask, well, how did they get that? And well, they came to us and asked. So it's been a great opportunity to really partner, going out and doing site visits, learning each other's work and how intertwined they are. Also for grant applications, the drinking water grant application that they received, I was a large part in working with Joseph on that. So really just trying to support the other departments, and we feel that support from them, and we're grateful for that. I thought this was pretty cool. This shows all our partners. So this is just this year, and I'm pretty sure I missed a few, but I won't read over them all, but we are constantly working with some staff, with somebody new, somebody different, supporting each other's work. It takes a team to be able to work in conservation. It's not something you can work in a silo on. So it's all the way from the local level, from the lake associations, all the way to the federal level, just from the U.S. Forest Service. So I like it because it's really pretty and it pops. It's like, hey, look at this. So talking finances now, I redid our budget since we met a long time ago. For us, our budget's always a revolving door due to the fact that we are mostly grant funded, about 75% grant funded. So this is our 2026 budget. You'll see there's a deficit. When I met with you previously, and I know in the slide I had provided, or the information, it says that we had to tap into our general fund. Part of our general fund comes from our billable rates. Our billable rates are really tight. We had somebody figure it out. We only get 1 to 2% of our billable rate actually can go into our general fund. That 1 to 2% is often spent. It's often just spent. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room. We've been lucky the last couple of years, but now we're starting to feel our luck run out as a lot of federal and state changes have come across over the last year and a half. So for 2026, when I did our budget last, which was in April, we were at a deficit. That's because we have to also carry funds over, even for One Watershed, One Plan, because again, we're the fiscal agent and it's a reimbursement program. So if people have $200,000 worth of bills come through, we either don't pay them or we have to take it out of our budget until we get reimbursed for the programs. So we are constantly in the red and then the black and in the red and in the black every year, all the time. And so when I did our budget, it's a deficit, but I'm not worried because I know that we have money that just came in. I also know we have a new grant that came in, and so it equals out. This year will equal out, we're hopeful, to be zero, but that was just our budget to update my board to keep them updated for $23,000.
How's the, I mean, when there's money that is yours that you have to dip in order to cover things, so in other words, you end up being the bank.
Yep, we are the bank.
What, how problematic is that for you?
It's problematic. It's hard to keep your books balanced because, especially at the end of the year, when we go at the end of the year and you're looking at it and you're like, holy cow, we have a $200,000 deficit because we're still waiting for reimbursements.
Yeah.
But we know our neighbors aren't, and it's an audit nightmare. And so then we have to say, here's the amount that's due from other governments. So then we know that amount because we have a binder with all our grants and all our invoices. So we know that, and so we can balance it and say, here's how much it is, here's the deficit. The other thing to note, we are working off of 6 different hourly rates every year. So that's the other nightmare. So you have 6 different hourly rates. You've got money coming from due governments. You've got, some of them have billable rates where we get that 1 to 2%. Some of them don't. Some of them don't cover all of our expenses. So it's hard. It's hard to keep our budget going.
And what I would say is that to the extent that it takes energy and time,
A lot of time.
that then it's trying to change that. And I know when, as commissioners, when we're looking at budget, and so we ask these questions of Brady, and Brady said, well, these PIL funds don't come in, or we don't get school drive. That doesn't, and so trying to figure it out based upon what our reality is can be challenging. But bottom line in that regard is that if you find that cash flow is affected by other people not being accountable, then that has to change because it encumbers our ability to be effective. Use of our time.
Oh, yeah.
And so, Lena, just to make sure I understand correctly, so for the grants that you receive, my understanding is they've capped that 1 to 2%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's not your doing. That's
not
the
our
grant
doing. That's the
providers.
state. Bowser, the Board of Water and Soil Research is saying, here's how you figure out your billable rate. And when someone, so we have a district manager who everybody goes to because she has a business background. I have a biology degree and a teaching license, So I've had to learn a lot. And she came forward and said to the state, we're only having a 1 to 2%, off of millions of dollars, because she's also the fiscal agent. So we have $1 million, and for us, the county actually receives the interest from that $1 million from the $800,000 from AIS, because you are a fiscal agent, you're holding our money. So we as a district, if we end up, as we work through our inter-service agreement, pulling all of our money out, that's $40,000 to $50,000 a year that would benefit us in reality, because we now have that extra money because we're gaining all that interest. But it also is another headache. There's a lot of coins here, sides to this coin. So it's interesting.
So let's just say that your ask of the county. What is your ask of the county?
We ask $80,000, which I'm going to get to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but the county is making the interest. And as practice, are we saying, well, we're making money on their money, so let's at least give them that?
I don't know that
And
conversation.
that would be an interesting point, but anyway.
Yeah, that's,
go ahead.
yeah, so I just like to want to be transparent and put
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
out there, so. Okay, so as we navigate our 2027 budget considerations, I know we've talked about this in the past. I am going to present my budget to you for the 2027 budget request. I don't have exact wages. I'm not even close because I am figuring out all these different rates right now, and we don't know our funding mechanisms. So right now, my budget will be off because I'm going to only go through one funding source, which is the higher billable rate, because that's been the easiest way to calculate. It also factors in when we know that there's going to be increases to health insurance. It seems to be the best way when I figure out my budget. Yeah, Kristen?
Why are you using the billable rate instead of personnel costs?
Because when I do grants, I have to always do the billable rates. And
Right,
so
but-
I have the personnel costs.
But that employee is paid the same throughout the year regardless of what the billable rate is.
That's for revenue, right? The billable rate versus expense.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about revenue.
Well, I don't, how do I?
No, I mean, because she's trying to do her calculations based upon what she anticipates the increase in health insurance and other things, so it is an expense element, but,
But that number is set.
yeah.
We can talk about this
Yeah, we
later,
can talk
too,
about
but-
it later. I'm gonna have to see if I can figure out how to explain it. Because when we do our budget, and this is how I was taught, because we factor into our billable rate our cost for mileage,
Yep.
everything.
The GNA, yep.
Yep, and because the grants, we have to use that for the grants. When I'm looking at it, I mean, this is not how it looks, but this is my sheet. Okay, so all these grants, my personnel, I know I can take out, 10%, 20%, and that's on my huge sheet that I have in database. And so that's my personnel. I mean, I have the actual personnel costs, and then I have the billable rate costs, if that makes
Okay.
sense. I have them both. We can talk
Okay,
about
let's
it.
talk about this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, before you get to the next slide, which is probably gonna have numbers on it, are we supposed to gasp when you get to it?
I don't have the numbers
Oh,
for
oh,
you.
oh, oh.
And I'll tell you why, yeah. I have some numbers, and it has the personnel costs, so
But
yeah.
This
So then that's when we
document
gasp?
that's in our
Is that-
packet,
Yep, I have those.
and that 2027 there,
Yep.
that shows, but if I look at this, I can look at 2025 when you had a 1.2 million,
Mhm.
and now your projected budget is at 800,000.
Mhm.
That's a 33% reduction. And I would say, where departmentally have we seen a 33% reduction?
But let's go through the conversation, work through this, because there's reasons for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go through it. Okay, so we'll talk about personnel stuff, I'll work with Kristen on that, and wages. We have several grants that are not secure, which I will also go through that. So when you see the 2027 budget, it is going to be in the red, 100% guarantee you that. And that number could become less or more depending on a few different things, which I'll get into. I don't know the county's allocation, which is why it's not on that document, and I didn't factor that in. And then, again, we're the fiscal agent for One Watershed, One Plan. That number fluctuates, and that's part of our budget, but it's only part of our budget for the part that we utilize. So there is a whole $600,000 that's sitting over here, part of the One Watershed, One Plan, and say for 2026, we only use $200,000 of that. So that's the only part you see in our budget when you look at our numbers. It's not this whole other $1 million. But if you were to pull out our SWCD treasurer's report every month, you're gonna see huge numbers because of the One Watershed Bank, we'll call it, over here that we are.
Which the county's making interest on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so also a few things to keep in mind. Sorry, I'm cold, so if I keep rubbing my hands. We can only charge 10 to 20% of our time for our grants for personnel time. As our wages go up, that means we have a lot less time that we can put towards grants. So we've got to figure out what do we do with that, which often means we tap into our general fund to cover that. If we can't cover our costs for staff time, because again, sometimes projects take years, then we again go into our general fund or we try to find other funding to cover that. We work off of annually 15 grants a year. That's average. I do the reporting for the county for the natural resource block grants and for the septic system grants. On average, just for the state alone, I report on it's about 25 to 30 grants, depending on the year. That's all of January. That's all I have time to do. So it's a lot.
If you were to take a time study of your time, I mean, for grant writing, you have other staff that write grants?
I have to do all the grant writing because we want our staff in the field.
So then my question, if you've ever, calculated out, what percentage of your time is grant writing?
It depends on the time of the year. On average, a grant, I've done this long enough, I've been at this job
Sure.
for 15 years, that helps. But if it's a new project, it'll take 40 hours. That is what I do at night. I'm not gonna lie, so.
Right, but
So-
if I came in your department, I said, okay, I want to know how much are
Yep.
you doing, this and how much you're doing that, and you say, of 100% of my time annually,
That I can't answer because it really depends. So I could go in right now and look and say, to date, I have probably applied for 8 to 10 grants. You're gonna average 20 to 40 hours a grant.
Yeah.
That's to date. So that's not managing grants, that's simply writing them.
Yeah.
How many have we obtained? I don't know because I'm waiting on so many that are federal right now. We've gotten a few, so.
So almost like, 30% of your time.
Yeah, you could say
well,
that.
and I think that's what you look at. Let's just say that sometimes, you'll have somebody that comes in that is your supervisor,
Right.
and they'll say, how come this isn't done? Well, because I'm
Yeah,
doing this.
Yeah, it's hard because.
And so the point is, from our perspective, we're trying to say all of the things that you do, how much is done on the administrative side? We're looking at public health, human services,
Right.
same thing. How much are you actually with people, helping them in their wellness, and how much are you actually doing the paperwork that's required? And the bottom line is, we want results from what our
Right.
purpose.
Right. Yeah, I can't answer that. I mean,
How does this compare with other soil water conservation districts, Cook County compared to others?
All conservation district, not all. It's, you can't compare.
I mean, regarding grant writing or?
Grant writing or in
Just,
general?
yeah, well, let's just say if 75% of your budget just comes, how do we find that? And you could say, well, I can do comparable counties. Now, in comparable in this regard, you gotta look at the amount of acreage we have
Yep.
within our county
Yep.
and the amount of water that you have, and then you'd say, okay, they maybe get a greater percentage of county, levy
Yeah.
dollars as opposed to grant dollars.
So we're
But-
not gonna compare ourselves to the farms. We're gonna
Right,
just do
right.
the top ones. And my understanding everybody's very different. We are fortunate that we used to be able to tap into the federal funds more because of the Great Lakes, but that funding has decreased
Yeah.
a lot. And so most of the SWCDs are not funded across the state, which is why we're continually asking for at least the SWCD aid, which was also reduced. And that was our base funding, and was reduced down to, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, $112,000 to $120,000. So all the districts, especially right now, are feeling all of the cuts
Yeah.
because most of them we're charged with being the boots on the ground is what everybody calls us, but with no funding.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's folks that have 10 or 12 staff that are funded and that are grant funded that are also feeling the same burdens of, yes, we are 75% funded, but they can't.
Yeah.
Us who are smaller are all kind of struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I hesitate to raise, but back in early, 20s,
Mhm.
2012, whatever, Soil Water Conservation Districts were looking for levy authority.
Right.
Has that discussion continued?
It has not that I'm aware of. It
Yeah.
continually we were
It got
told
so
no.
shot down,
Yep.
but, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
I'm not
No, I
encouraging
know.
it. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I know you're not, but
Yeah.
when we have been told by our representatives, so Hauschild and Scraba, to continually ask for the counties, for all of our partners to start speaking up, because they're hearing it from landowners, but they're not hearing it from our large partners of like, what's your value?
Yeah.
And hey, Highway Department, you helped secure, over $4 million in the last 3 years
Yeah.
for the county, and just to continually have our value, because as what we're being told that as things continually get restrained, we will also continually get restrained. And we're
Yeah.
all looking at like how, we will go back to the day, which is before my time, where the supervisors didn't get paid and you had 2 staff, and it will be across the state, because that's
Yeah.
what will happen. But we're trying not to. We're trying to stay optimistic and keep putting one foot forward and keep moving forward. So.
Well, I think, our intention moving forward is to make data-based informed decisions.
Right.
And if the information that is provided is factual and not emotional,
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
say.
totally, yeah.
Yeah, that when we, as decision makers, are evaluating all of the services we provide, we need it in the context to show.
Right.
If your statement about the highway department, what you do in assisting the highway department that's generating this revenue, that we need to show your value where it touches other areas within our community,
Yep.
so that we do that database analysis. We're saying, okay,
Yep.
we're prioritizing dollars based upon the return of those
Right,
dollars.
right. Which is why I'm here, to try to
Yeah.
present this in a different way, because I know what we do, but we
Yeah.
are not. We always laugh at soil and water folks. We're kind of introverted. We don't want to like say, hey,
Yeah.
here's what we do, even though we're supposed to. And the hard part too is that we can't take on any more workload. We are always getting told you need to be out there, and landowners are constantly calling. But when we have a 1 to 2 to 3 year waiting list,
Yeah.
that's really hard for landowners, and that's hard for us because we want to get work done.
Sure.
That's why we're here. So yeah. So I spend an enormous amount of time administering and writing grants. Yeah, where I could be doing other things. Education and outreach is my background, and that's what I did. And when I took on district manager, I still had a full-time job. So I have 2 jobs, which I've been trying to separate out more for my board to be able to see both roles in our board reports. So, okay, so 2027 budget projections. My estimated, still working through it, our total revenue is around $755,000. Our personnel costs are around $390,000. We have estimated for projects is $365,000. So when you're looking at that graph that I presented to you, it is going to change because we have different projects. For example, Poplar River is a good chunk of that $365,000. That's a $300,000 project that we're going to be putting in. The following year, we're looking at putting in a $450,000 project if we can secure the funding for our big project on top of all our smaller projects. So that number, if we can secure it, will go up. But remember, our staff money is still not going to increase as much. It just means we get to shift things around and not have to touch into our general fund. So right now it's estimated that we are potentially going to have around $134,000 federal funds. We have 4 grants that are out there. I have no idea what's going to happen with them. We were told that they're in the hopper, but they're all environmental and we don't know. So we're just waiting for things to continually. There's a lot of questions out there, which makes me nervous that they're not going to go through, but we're going to hope for them. Some of them are multi-year grants, which will be beneficial also because then they can carry into 2028. But until we know that, we don't know much. So the top level, that's our secured estimated personnel funding that I have. Our actual costs for estimated personnel is around $502,000. I've been with the county a long time, so I'm grateful for what I make. So that bumps our costs up, And so that's not our hourly rate. That's what includes for our board, because we pay our board and all of our staff. So we have roughly a deficit next year of $112,000 for our day-to-day operations. That's not our hourly rates, that's what is included in our hourly rates, but we have a $20,000 to $30,000 deficit. So our total estimated, again, this is pretty rough because I'm still working through all the numbers, is $168,000 for next year.
Does that
Yeah, I don't sleep.
reflect that from 2025's 1.2 million? I mean, let's just say that when you have grants, grants fluctuate
Yep.
so much
Yep.
that you can have fluctuations. If we look at your bar
Numbers.
graph here, we see fluctuations and largely, well,
Yep.
you color coded it,
Yep.
but if you're asked, because we see grants are dropping, we're not getting as many grants to fund,
Yep.
then that puts more of a burden on the levy if we're
Yep.
gonna continue operations where we're at.
Right.
So right now, for us, we need to know, there's no question that you haven't been aggressive
Oh, yeah.
relative to writing the grants,
Yep.
which has a flip side of the coin effect on what you devote other time to,
Correct.
but it's fundamental to your being able to operate.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
yeah, but,
Yeah, you're getting my whole picture.
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
appreciate that. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, no, but this is, and I appreciate, you know, the discussion and we're tripping through it as opposed to,
Yeah.
here it is, it's clean, walk away.
No,
and
it's not clean at all.
We don't own it because we haven't really
Yeah.
chewed on it with you, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So when organizations go through a challenge like this, there are different strategies that they leverage to offset the deficits.
Mhm.
As a state, has SWCA talked about what strategies they're going to leverage?
No, we are, so the only strategy they have right now is the SWCD aid. And then otherwise, it's just, we as district managers all know that it just means cuts with staff or programs and projects. So we're all, from my understanding, it's so interesting because it depends who you talk to. Us in the North Shore are getting hit differently because of our federal funding folks. The Natural Resource Conservation Service, depending on what happens with the USDA, and all of that, we'll leave it at that, that will really impact everybody, because a lot of our districts are housed with them, and so if those reductions happen. So right now, I think it's every conversation we have is totally different. So right now, it's just keep your head up, keep moving forward, and see what you can do. So we do a lot with partnerships. We do a lot with collaborating with grants with like SWCD. You know, almost every time we're applying for a grant that can be across that county line, we're saying, do you guys need part of it for staff time? The grant can be up to this amount of money. We're only going to use half of it. Do you want to mimic it? And most of the time they'll say yes, and we are just doing what we can to share as much funding. So,
And you've got a limiter on your billable,
great.
so it's not like saying, well, let's just increase. I mean, if we
No.
look at land services, we'll say, well, we're gonna increase our
Right.
inspection rate or whatever. I don't know that we've got a governor on that, but we,
Right.
in this situation, we do, so
Right.
it's only gonna be in relationship to a percentage of overall budgets.
Yep. So, what's the future forecast? It's variable. We have no idea. I just mentioned kind of those deficits. We have project costs that are not determined into these numbers yet. The budget's going to be impacted next year by our reductions in AIS. I haven't factored that in yet because when I did this budget, it was still kind of all over the fence as to what those implications were going to be. Now that we know solid numbers, we will reduce probably what we take from the AIS budget for my staffing time. So, because we only take a percentage of it. The one good caveat is that, again, when I'm doing this budget, I didn't have our FY26 watershed-based implementation funding. That's that Lake Superior North that we're fiscal agent. We've got projects coming in for that. So that will help, and that will increase things. And then with some luck, I'm hoping that that $134,000 will be secured. And then our deficit goes down. Again, these are rough numbers to around $33,000, which we can make up somewhat in our billable rates, or we can take from our general fund. We do have, the state likes you to try to have 6 months of general fund, which we luckily have, due to everybody before me and myself of just continually trying to build that and being really fiscally frugal. So what I tried to just paint, again, I don't have the county funding in here. We have 16% of our funding is going to be used from our, right now, again, I need to run the numbers for our fund balance, so I'm calling that secured. We have our state-based funding, which I know is 21%, which we get annually, and then the rest is our competitive grants, and that's secured. So here's the graph you have. It changed a little bit from what you have in your packet because I played with numbers as I'm working through my budget, but it's pretty close. Again, I just took out that funding for the county on the 27 because it's not secured yet. So we're just looking at secured money. And then that purple, which is our fund balance, again, that's our hourly rates, and that's just knowing that we'll be utilizing that, but offsetting it. It could shrink, it could increase as I move forward. So.
Fund balance is different than the monies that there for the watershed.
Yes, totally
the
different.
watershed.
That's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like the county has a fund balance, so does the
Right.
district. Yeah.
And how about the interest on that then?
The county has that interest too, because the county houses all our funding.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yep. So I just wanted to paint the picture because I like to look long-term and have that big picture and then work backwards. So the day-to-day. Our 2028 projection, because I also, I want my staff to know what's going on, and my board. We're gonna have a larger deficit just due to increased personnel, day-to-day costs, cost of living, staff wages going up. We have a lot of grants and funding we just don't know where the funding mechanisms are going to be in 2027. We've already been told that through the state and the federal government. So there's a lot of unknowns. Again, we have that one hopeful glimmer of the FY28 watershed-based implementation funding for Rainy River Headwaters and Lake Superior North. If it maintains at its current level, that'll still be $1 million. But again, we don't get the full $1 million. It's based off of projects that need to be implemented. When we did our fiscal year 26, we already had over $1 million worth of projects that were ready in the hopper between the county, just Cook County, the county and the SWCD waiting to get implemented. So when I say yay, there's a yay, but it's not like we're going to be the cash cow. I always like to paint that because it seems to be misrepresented. So my off the back of the napkin scratches for 2028 is we're looking at a $250,000 deficit. There's nothing, I can't change that number. It's just, that's my first little glimpse. We'll figure it out. When I started this job, it was always grant funded, and that was in 2011. And every year in September, we'd be like, well, do we have a job next year? And so we just find a way. I tell the staff that too, who are kind of nervous, but we're not alone we know that there's budget cuts across the board. So I know you all have a tough decision to make, but I wanted to show you our impact that we do have, and show you our budget also, so that you're aware of that.
Can you, what your, I don't know the correct word is
That's
actually
okay.
contingency.
Mhm.
It's just what your plan, given what you're looking at.
Mhm.
So where do you begin
That is a
the
board,
cuts?
yeah, that's a board discussion, and so we have not approached that yet, because right now we're gonna get our 2027 budget figured out and solidified. The budget you will have will not be approved by my board yet, but they are familiar with all of this, we've been discussing it, and then we'll start to look and discuss
Yeah.
more.
It'd be helpful for us if we knew, so what your response to what you're seeing to see, and of course the board informs that, and
Yeah.
your experience informs it, so
Yeah.
that we say, yeah, I think your approach is what it is. Either we say that's acceptable or it's not acceptable, but
Right,
that'd
well,
be
and it'll
helpful.
be for my board to decide, because they're their
Yeah.
own supervisors, what is gonna be acceptable and what they decide to do for all of that,
True,
so.
but it comes before us as a recommendation.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Nope,
Oh.
they're their own,
We
they're
just-
their own
They're
government
their
government
own. Oh, that's-
agency.
okay.
And so it will just be, I'm just informing you as a partner and
Yeah.
as somebody who is providing funding for us, but it will all go before my board, and then my board has to make the decisions of cutting staff hours, cutting staff
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
cutting programs, and then I can present to you what they have approved as the
Yeah.
governing board.
And that's my point. I
Yeah.
understand the independence, it just, if you're coming for any tax dollars
Yeah.
that are levy dependent, the rationale that informed your ask
Okay.
is what we need to know, so, yeah.
And some of the things that we've done as a county in the past to support your agency
Right.
is provide space. I know
Yes.
it's not the best space.
It's
but-
a space.
But provide space so that you don't have the
Mhm.
overhead cost of
Right.
renting space. We help manage the finances, and I
Yes.
know, like you've mentioned, the
Mhm.
county keeps the interest, but we don't charge
Right.
for that service. And so I think we've been creative about
Yes.
how to help in other ways.
Yes.
And I look forward to having additional conversations about, are there other ways
Mhm.
that we could perhaps
Mhm.
assist as we move forward?
Right.
I'm not sure what those
We don't
are.
know yet,
But,
yeah.
and we're also at the place where I think we need to update the
We're
contract.
updating the service agreement, yep.
Yep,
Con-
exactly.
currently.
So
So
that will
that's-
be helpful.
Yeah, and hopefully that will be done by the end of the year is the goal, and so we'll have a better understanding. Even for our end, what all of this looks like. And we've been grateful, you know, the service agreement started in 2004 to help keep the district up and going and just make it more viable. And I feel like it's been a good partnership since I've been part of the district. And it's just been healthy and really good and supportive, and we're very thankful. We are able to use the vehicles and just keep ourselves up. Otherwise, everything goes into our billable rates, and that makes it even trickier. So,
We need to come up with a good recipe for crawdads.
right?
And have a booth at Fisherman's Picnic.
There you go. So you had asked kind of what are the impacts to the work from our budget reductions. I didn't put staffing in here because it's alarming for staff to have to hear that. So I wanted to try to put more of how does it impact the community and the natural resources that we do. So, you know, our environment's going to continue to change. We're going to continue to have forest impacts from spruce breadworm and fires and everything. Our precipitation is continually changing. Our land stewardship and management practices from landowners change because we're getting different people in, you know, with different perspectives and ideas, and this is the bulk of our work. So our workload will still be there, but the environment's going to continually be changing. So that means with budget reductions, we're going to have less ability to respond to landowners when they need it, or just be able to respond. We will have less opportunity to provide support to all of our partners because we just won't have the capacity. We know that we have flooding about every 3 to 5 years, it seems like. Unfortunately, we were discussing with the DNR, we're due this year, and it always happens over summer solstice, so keep your eye on the radar for the weekend. And so we're hoping it doesn't happen, but you know, when that flooding takes place, we're almost always the first people folks call, you know, either on the property, on their private property, the city will call, and so we won't be able to respond. We won't be able to say, yeah, let's contact FEMA, let's contact those folks. We have a lot of ends because there won't be the staff to do it, or the capacity. Even if there are the staff, we can't help as much with forest health and biodiversity, which again is one of the reasons why we have clean water. If you want to look at it from an economic standpoint, people come up here because we have clean water. So they're not going to want to come when the harbor's gross, or the rivers are gross, or the lakes are gross, or property value goes down. We're going to have a lot less science and understanding of the long-term land use impacts because we're not able to do water monitoring and to support that, which is really important up here. Even if you fish, it's important. No matter what, you're being touched by this. So all of the work that we do, both little and big, will be impacted, and I know that sometimes I always get the question, and I've gotten it lots of times of, well, what do you guys do? What's your impact? And it's hard to paint it because we are so small, but when we look at it, we actually do a lot, and it's pretty big. So I'll end you with a nice photo at the end of the trail of my favorite camping spot up on the end of the trail. But just to say thank you, you know, to the county. Thank you for listening to me talk for a very long time today, and for asking questions and for the support. I know the staff appreciate it, and my supervisors appreciate it, and landowners do too. So,
Thank you.
yeah, I probably need a break now.
I've worked with Elaine on the different projects down in the West End. It's just invaluable. But how do we sort this out?
Yeah,
So
it's
we're going to work with you.
thanks. So yeah, I just wanted to provide you with the update too, and our budget is going to change from what you're going to see next week, or when you get your budget requests, it will change throughout the next year because that's what we do. We're constantly just updating it. So.
And if I might just mention that because you are part of an outside organization, it's going through our new process with the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee and the application process. So we'll screen it through that, and then it will come before the board.
But the AIS budget, because it is a county, it's in the county funding, will have a different budget. So you'll see that separate, and I'm working with Amanda on that. So you'll see 2 budgets coming in just for that reason.
Well, thanks for all your work.
Yeah,
You
thank
work
you.
so well with all our departments, all of our residents, and it often goes unnoticed.
Yes, we do.
And
We stay
it's
way under the
really
radar.
important that we are all making sure that we give credit where credit is due,
Thank you.
and incredible work you do.
Thanks. So, it's good work.
Mhm.
So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to talk about the Tofte transfer station operations
Okay.
transition.
All right, well, as you can see, Neva is not here. She is
Right.
on vacation. So I am sitting in for her, and Allison is going to assist with this topic as well. First of all, I want to mention why we added this to COW. So we really wanted, because this is a new conversation, we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to hear the discussion, have some discussion, and then bring it to the board for a future decision. Didn't want to bring it to the board for a decision without it being before you and give you time to kind of think about how you want to respond. So first of all, that's why we're here today at a COW. As you all know, the Tofte Transfer Station operations will be transferred to North Shore Waste. That's a decision that was made quite some time ago. And we're continuing to move forward with the Tofte Transfer Station construction, and we're looking at a completion date of around July 1st. So we need to start planning for transferring the operations to North Shore Waste. So with planning for the operations, we have a position that's impacted. So when the decision to transfer operations was made, a decision regarding the waste site attendant was not concurrently made at the time that those decisions about the transfer of the operations happened. And so we want to make sure, again, that we have an opportunity to talk about it and what is going to happen with that particular position. So a meeting with the impacted employee and HR and the Land Services Director occurred on May 26th, and we also sent a follow-up letter to the employee. He was notified of this operational change, that it would be occurring, and that this topic would be discussed today. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that he has been notified. And so there are two provisions that Allison is going to walk us through that outline our options. And one is the personnel policy, and one is the CCEA collective bargaining agreement. So with that, Allison, do you want to walk through those two?
Sure, yeah. And those items or those documents are included in the agenda item after the summary of the agenda item. So we'll just start with looking at the overarching personnel policy that addresses changes of employment status. So it's like this, I print it out so I can have notes and run through it. So I just want to review all of the potential changes that could occur with someone currently employed in the county, and just some of the specifics in regards to each one as to how those can occur, and potentially that information will inform the conversation and potential decision that would impact this position. All right, so I'm going to start with, and they're laid out by numbers, so I'll just kind of go down by the numbers. So in general, when we see county employees kind of shift and move in the organization, there can be different changes, and they're subject or potentially a promotion, which is usually where someone moves into an available vacant position, and usually there's an increase in pay. We have voluntary and involuntary transfers, so that's where the decision is made either by the employee or the supervisor, the manager, to move an individual from one similarly paid position to another, so there's usually no change in pay. There are demotions, so those can also be voluntary or involuntary. Again, that would be where someone is moving from one position to another, and there's usually an associated decrease in pay. Now the big thing to note about those options would be there actually has to be an open position available to move an employee into. As of right now, we have 3 open positions that are currently posted. We've got an adult mental health case manager, deputy sheriff, and public safety telecommunicator jailer. So independently of whatever employee, if they're looking to move to another position, they'd obviously have to meet all of the minimum qualifications and go through the standard recruitment process for that role. Then we're moving into some other options. So number 7 in that personnel policy is actually referring to layoffs. And this would be where we would actually have to basically abolish a position And this could be due to lack of funds, shortage of work, or other reasons beyond the control of the employee. Potentially change in operations, like we're shifting this to North Shore Waste. Other than that, outside of layoffs and the other options for movement, there would also be resignations and actually dismissing or terminating an employee. Now, when we look at the subsequent page in the attached agenda, it looks like this. It starts with like section 5.6, then talks about Article 19, Article 20. This is pulled directly from the Cook County Employees Association collective bargaining agreement. So this position, though a site attendant at Tofte, this position is covered under the CCA bargaining group. And thus, any provision within the CCA agreement would apply to this position as well. Now, the changes of employment status that I discussed are not referenced in, not all of them are referenced in the CCA contract. The only one that is covered and represented is the provision about layoffs, and the language is very much in alignment with the language that's in the personnel policy.
So with that, the reason that we're bringing this to you, and one of the reasons we will bring it for a future meeting, is in the layoff provision, it does say that the decision to lay off personnel shall be made by the county board after consultation with the affected department head and the administrator's office. And also that the employee shall be given as much notice of layoff as feasible. And so we have, again, notified the employee that this conversation is happening. We have encouraged the employee to review the open county positions. North Shore Waste will be moving forward with posting a position for that facility as well. And so we've encouraged the employee to reach out to North Shore Waste and learn more about the future of that position. But again, just wanted to start the conversation here, and then we'll bring it to a future meeting for a final decision.
Has this been done with the Hovland group?
The Hovland was a new station.
Yep, there was
station.
There was no
Okay.
employee
No
that was
position.
working there.
Mhm.
We have now employees that work there.
Correct, but
Yes.
They're
the
North Shore
county,
Waste.
the county never operated
Yeah.
Hovland.
Okay.
We developed it, and then the operations immediately was taken on by North Shore Waste.
Right,
And so they
okay.
hired an employee
Okay,
for
so
that
they have the same
facility.
contract,
So
of the same,
That's
the operations.
they're
and-
with
That's
North Shore
their North
Waste.
Shore Waste
Correct.
and
employee.
what they have.
Yeah.
Correct, and so
Yeah.
the operations for Tofte will
Okay.
be similar to what is at Hovland.
Okay.
So basically, I mean, I appreciate the integrity of this process. And if we have policies in place, we have to make sure, oftentimes as commissioners, when something's coming before the board, we'll ask Brady or our attorney and say, what are the parameters in which this decision can get made? And so if we're gonna have a change, it's not as simple as just doing what we foresee. We have to understand compliance with regard to this. So I appreciate, again, the integrity of the process. The fact that you've notified the individual is a good thing. The fact that both in our Cook County Employees Agreement and in our policy, the provision is there. It just, at this point, it's up to the board to make the decision in order to be compliant. And we're looking at an opening date for the center that's coming up. That's why notifying and letting them know is important. But, so again, I just underscore, appreciate the integrity of this process, and my recommendation would be then just bring it before the board. We know the parameters in which the decision can get made. You've offered, based upon our policy, what options are for the individual, and they're certainly willing or able to make application with the person that now would have the authority to be able to make that hire.
And what is the timeline for them to apply?
They have not posted the position yet, but anticipate that they will be posting it soon.
It's, by July 1st. I imagine.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
It's coming along really nice.
Oh, good, I've heard.
My only regret is that we didn't notify earlier. It was kind of
Yeah.
implied when
Yeah.
we decided to go the path we are with the transfer station.
Right.
And so, yeah, but if we could have officially notified, then I think that would
And it could have
be nicer,
been
but, yeah.
a little awkward, given the fact that the Hoagland situation was completely different than this, and so we put it in, muddled it in the whole context, but it's back to saying, it's just wise for us as commissioners to always say, what's the context in which this decision gets made, so that we can make sure that we're protecting consistent and integrity in how we apply our policies, so.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, you're welcome. And that is the last item that we have on our agenda, so we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison.